Hey everyone, Kevin here. I have 3 updates for you regarding the next potential stimulus package from the White House, from Congress, all sides. Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to address is a misleading article. It's actually on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It's formal talks paused on next stimulus package. Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow says. This is actually very, very misleading and it's very frustrating. But I don't judge a book by its cover, so I look at the Wall Street Journal. I specifically go to the article directly. I have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal so I can see what they're saying. So I gotta sign in and unlock it on this computer. And the article simply quotes Larry saying, "We're kind of paused as far as formal negotiations go." But this is totally out of context and nowhere in the article is the rest of the context given. So I'm going to give it to you. I watched the interview and these are the exact notes that I took. I'm gonna read this to you. The anchor says on Fox News this morning, "The president meets with Republicans this afternoon talking about a new rescue package, more measures to get things moving. What do you have in mind, Larry?" Remember, Larry's the economic advisor, and this anchor is asking Larry, "What do you have in mind?" To which Larry responds, "Well, Donald Trump probably has in mind things like payroll tax holidays, tax incentives for entertainment businesses, expensing for retooling for safety, broadband, and then the anchor says, hey, well, can you get these things done? Can you actually get these things implemented?" To which Larry responds and says, "Look, quote, we've had meetings yesterday, for example, Kevin Hassett and I by telephone had meetings with 40 to 50 House members, both parties, Republican and Democrat, exchanging ideas. I think there's a pause in formal negotiations. We're going to take a look at things at the end of May and June and see where things are in the economy. So I don't know that, and I don't want to predict the legislative process." This is huge. Let's understand this because it's really important. First of all, the anchor opens up the dialogue by saying, hey, we know that Donald Trump is talking to Congress later today about the next round of stimulus. What do you think they're gonna talk about? So, the dialogue's getting opened by talking about stimulus. So it's not possible for negotiations to be paused by that premise, right? Well, but what about the quote? He said formal negotiations are paused. Yes, out of context, it sounds like that. But this is actually what Larry means. When he says formal negotiations have paused, he means formal negotiations between him and Trump have paused between the White House and Democrats. That is, the White House is taking a back seat going, you know what? Hey, you guys are gonna need a few weeks to figure this out in Congress anyway. Let us know when you're all ready. And how do we know that's what he meant? Because of that next line the Wall Street Journal didn't quote. So I don't know, and I don't want to predict the legislative process. The legislative process is the negotiation that's happening. Right now, we're expecting House Democrats to introduce the big Phase 4 bill, CARES Act 2. This is the big one, not the little micro proposals, the big one that's going to be like the big jellyfish that just absorbs all of the little ones that they like. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Then the Democrats in the House are going to negotiate that with Republicans in the House, who are then going to negotiate that with the Senate. After Congress negotiates all of this, then the White House is going to look and go, all right, what do we think about the bills we got here? Which is going to be the end of May, beginning of June anyway. So Larry's not really saying anything here other than, hey, let's just wait and see what Congress says. Because they can't say anything right now anyway. It's not their turn, it's Congress's turn. But that spin by the Wall Street Journal is really it's misleading. Did not like that, Wall Street Journal, and I usually like you guys. And it's not even just an exciting title. They didn't fully quote the guy in the article. But anyway, now in other news, over the last few days, I suggested that all of y'all sign a petition, and if we get over 100,000 signatures, the White House is going to respond to our request to pass the Emergency Money for the People Act. Now remember, this is asking the White House for a response, and it puts the urgency in front of them. This petition continues for another 6 or 7 days. So my guess is it's probably going to take a few weeks before we hear something from the White House on this. And remember, the Senate and the House, they're the ones in the driver's seats right now, but at least we put our stake out there. In fact, you could still sign that petition. I'll link it down below. The more people sign it, even if we're above that 100,000 threshold, the better it looks. You know, it's kind of like that feeling of knowing you have life insurance or getting 2 free stocks with Webull when you deposit $100. Links below for that. But let's talk about the third update. Here's a big one. So lately, we've known that this big phase 4 package is coming, CARES Act 2. We think it's going to be introduced on Monday or Tuesday, and that's going to be the big Goliath bill. The multi-trillion-dollar bill is the expectation right now. $700 to $800 billion for state and local governments, and then possibly something as big as $2 to $3 trillion in total for everything else. So we'll see, but we're expecting that bill. And in the meantime, we have only heard Nancy Pelosi say that she wants to see money in people's pockets. We've also heard her say she wants testing, tracing, and treatment, and she also wants money for the food stamp program, SNAP. Now, we've never heard Nancy Pelosi endorse any specific type of stimulus. That is, how much money do you want to put into our pockets? Until now. The Hill reported at the end of one of their articles Wednesday evening that Nancy Pelosi was on a call with other Democratic leaders on Wednesday night. And here's the quote, Pelosi and other lawmakers voiced support for including in the next package $2,000 in recurring monthly payments for Americans, a concept known as universal basic income made popular by former presidential hopeful Andrew Yang. This is the first time we've seen this kind of endorsement for the $2,000 per month proposal. So there's your update on the next round of stimulus. We got some clarity on a little bit of misleading quoting regarding the next stimulus package and the White House's responsibility at the same time as Donald Trump is actually meeting people from Congress to talk about the next package. We're waiting for Democrats to submit the next big bill, and we know that we now have Nancy Pelosi's support for $2,000 in monthly recurring payments, which the reason that's really, really powerful is if Nancy Pelosi comes out and says, we just want an extra $1,200 one time. Well, Republicans might water that down in the Senate and say, all right, well, we'll give you $600 one time. Nancy Pelosi comes out strong, guns a-blazing, and goes, we want $2,000 a month for 12 months. Maybe we'll see $2,000 a month for 4 months, or 6 months, or 2 months. It's a negotiation, right? Let's see what happens. With that said, make sure to hit that red subscribe button, join the channel, and thank you so much. I'm gonna go get another cup of coffee, as usual. Cheers, everyone.